Hello, this is Dan the Furniture Repairman. Today we have a video on repairing this broken chair leg. This is a very common area for this type of leg to break. I call that the knee of the leg, and it kind of splits there right on the grain. First thing you got to do is get the seat out of the way so we don't damage it. After that, I'm going to test the fit. I have the chair turned upside down, and I want to see how it goes back together and if I have all the pieces or if some are missing. So it looks like it seems back together very nicely. So we're going to have to clamp it, and I'm going to test clamp it. Now you can see the seam right here. When I apply pressure with my clamp, that slides upward, and that's a very common problem with breaks like this. So what I'm going to do is solve it with a little finish nail. I'm just going to put this inside of my drill, and I'm going to drill it through one board into the other. So I'm just going to hold it together by hand and turn that little finish nail into a drill bit. I'm going to go through the two pieces and going to take my drill off just like that. Now I'm going to put in two of those, one on the right and one on the left. And what they're going to do is they're going to hold that piece in position and keep it from sliding. So now when I apply pressure, you can see right there, it doesn't slide. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to install some wood screws. So I'm going to install a couple of them, and I'm going to actually countersink them right into these holes right here. That'll just kind of help me hide them and keep me from splitting that carving. Remember to like and subscribe, and put some comments down if you like. Now for the wood screws, I drilled 3 different size holes, and I'm going to spend a little time on this because I do get questions on it. The first hole is going to be a pilot hole, and that goes through both boards, and what that's going to do is pilot hole into the second board, and it's going to grab on so it doesn't split. I never put wood screws in without pilot holing. The next is just through the first board. That's the access hole. That's a larger hole. That should be the size of the threads. That lets it slip through. And then the last hole is a countersink hole. You could use a countersink bit. I just use a large drill bit. And then just a standard sheetrock screw, nothing special. I think this is like a 2.5 inch right there, and it should slip through the first part, and it's going to grab onto the second part into those pilot holes, and what it's going to do is pull the parts together nice and strong. And you can see just with the screws and the clamps. So here's a quick diagram. Okay, you have 2 boards, you got to pull them together. And for your wood screw, you have to know a couple measurements. The root diameter of the screw, that's going to equal your pilot hole. The other thing you're going to need is the thread diameter, how wide it is there. That's the drill you're going to use for your access hole. So your clearance hole equals the thread diameter right there. Clearance hole or access hole, both are the same. Now your pilot hole should be the size of the root diameter, and that's going to let it bite, the threads bite into the bottom board or the board you want to pull to get together, and then the head of it's just going to tighten it up nice and tight for you. Now I have it all screwed together. What I'm going to do is check my position. So I'm looking at my diagonals right now, and I'm just about 25 3/8 to the center. I'm just eyeballing it. I'm going to the other side right here, and I'm going to see where I land, and I'm right about the same spot. I'm happy with my diagonals, so that means the leg should be sitting in the right spot. But I could also check front to back, okay, and make sure I'm landing in the same spot front to back. If I'm within a 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch, I'm relatively certain I'm in a good position. If I'm more than that, then I may have something a little bit out of whack. So definitely measure up and check. If you want to support our YouTube channel, we have our PayPal link in the description below. Please help us out. It helps us make more videos. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking the leg back apart. I just reverse my process, and I'm going to put my glue on. I always dry fit everything. I always install anything I'm going to be putting on during the gluing process to make sure it all goes correct. I always apply adhesive to both sides of the piece. The reason why is I fix a lot of other people's work, and a lot of times I'll see they have enough glue, but for some reason it didn't transfer on to the other side, and that's why it failed. We call that glue starvation, adhesive starvation, something like that. So I always put my glue on both sides of the piece. And now what I'm doing is I'm just putting that wood screw in, that sheetrock screw, nothing fancy, part way in so I can line those holes back up together. And then I'm just going to go ahead and tighten it back up, and it's all lined up again. And I'm going to come back and put my little Finish nails right back through the same holes. Everything's going to be all lined up, and you can see my seam there. I've got a nice squeeze out of my glue. Things are nice and tight. I'm going to just clean off my glue, a little bit of water with a spritz bottle, and then just a paper towel should wipe it down. And you can see I'm very generous with the water. It doesn't bother me that much. I'm going to spray it on there and just wipe it right off. And what I want is that seam to be nice and tight. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a clamp to the top part here, and I'm going to let this dry overnight. Okay. And I know I've got a seam here. We're going to have to touch this up. Now this is going to be a two-part video. It's going to be the wood repair, and then the second part is going to be the cosmetic work. But here it is. It's the next day. The clamps are off. It's back on its feet. You can see we have the pins there, and I have 3 wood screws here that I have holding this together along with the glue, and then we have those 2 pins. So this guy is really reinforced well. Now those finished nails, I usually don't drive them any deeper. What I usually just do is cut them off. I do leave them in place because they do add some support on there, which will kind of help absorb any sort of bounce or anything. So they do help. So I kind of just give them a little cut and bend them back and forth, and they pop right off. This is Dan, the Furniture Repairman. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, every time we restore a piece, it keeps it out of the landfill, and it keeps trees from getting cut down to make new ones. You all have a good day.